Hey, this is Brian Beckcom at VB Attorneys, and I've got Robert McCain. Robert is a former client, good friend of the firm, recently settled his case. And, one of the things that Vuk and I like to do at VB Attorneys is a lot of people that have legal cases, that's the first time they've ever had a legal case. So they have absolutely no idea what to expect. They don't know what's coming. They don't know how long it'll take, what they should or shouldn't be doing. And there's a lot of anxiety around the process. And so Robert has agreed to come on today and talk a little bit about his experience with the lawsuit process, how it went, and maybe answer some questions that might be on some people's minds. Tell people a little bit about your background, where you come from, what you did for work before you ended up having to stop work.
Well, I started working offshore in 2000. Started working as a roustabout, worked my way up, became a crane operator. And in 2007, I decided to go overseas. And I worked overseas until we came back to the Gulf due to contract issues when the downfall came with the oil field.
Yeah.
In June of 2015.
Yeah.
Now I swapped companies. I swapped the companies a few times. For reasons, more money, different opportunities. So.
Well, good. So, and so you for people that aren't familiar with the oil and gas industry, a roughneck is basically that's like the starting position. That's like the lowest person on the rig, right?
Well, a roustabout is the lowest.
Roustabout. Okay. And did you start as a roustabout or a roughneck?
I started as a roustabout.
Okay. So you started on the bottom floor, right?
That's right.
And what kind of things, and you were a Marine or you worked in the offshore industry. So in other words, you weren't land-based, you were offshore. What kind of, were you on a drill ship? Were you on a jackup rig? What were you on?
Well, I started off on platforms.
Okay.
I went from platforms to a semi-submersible and then to drill ships.
All right. And the platforms, those are fixed, but basically fixed to the ocean floor. My brother actually worked on platforms for a couple of years. And then the drill ships those are kind of the big daddies, right? Those are massive vessels that can go from place to place and drill and produce oil, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so tell us, tell us like what a roustabout does. Like for people that aren't familiar with this industry, what exactly do you do on like a typical day?
Let's see. On a majority of the roustabout's job is cleaning.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. They do housekeeping around the rig, but we would do rigging, getting ready to put lifts on the boat, unhooking from the crane when the crane operator would bring stuff up from the boat. Just basically moving lifts around,
Yeah.
It sounds simple when you talk about it, but for the most part it is,
Yeah.
It's not, it's a hard job at times, but you have to use common sense when you do stuff like that. So to
Sure.
stay safe and to think about what's going on.
And the roustabouts and the roughnecks for that matter, kind of the manual labor on the ship, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And so over time, not everybody gets promoted, but over time you got promoted ultimately to the crane operator position, right?
Yes.
And tell us that's obviously, I'm familiar with that position. It's a super important position, very, very important for a lot of different reasons. Tell us kind of what you need to demonstrate in order to even get that position. And then what were you doing as a crane operator?
Well, I mean, you have to be responsible. You have to show your your supervisor, your tool pushers, or your rig management, that you are responsible, that you handle your business on the deck as far as our JSAs, and paperwork, stuff like that. They want to see someone being a leader.
Yeah. And JSAs,
So,
those are job safety analysis, right?
that's correct.
So big, I imagine big part of being a crane operator is demonstrating a history of working safely and following the rules, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so how long were you a crane operator until you got hurt?
Let's see. About 16 years, 17 years.
Okay.
Like that.
So you'd been doing it for quite some time.
Right.
And crane operators, and we don't have to get into the details, but you make good money, right? I mean, it's a tough job, and not many people can do it, and so they pay pretty well for people that can do that. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so you ended up getting hurt. Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury just kind of basically what happened to you, how you got hurt, what safety rules were involved, things of that nature.
Well, first off, like I said, when I was with this company, we came back to the Gulf due to the downfall of the industry. So there were rigs out there that were dropping like flies. They were losing contracts or whatever. So there was a lot of people at home that were looking for work. So as we were here in the Gulf, working on wells here, the captain of our ship had meetings, and they would have meetings all day long. But they had a meeting with the marine crew, which the crane crew fell under marine crew on drill ships, and he pretty much told the upper management of the crane crew that he wanted to see the crane operators working with the roustabouts, instead of just supervising like we normally supposed to be doing. I don't think everyone agreed with it as far as the upper management, but the captain said it, so that's who lays the law down.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was passed on to us, and that particular day we had the crew on the lower deck scrubbing, cleaning up and stuff, greasing things, just whatever, checking, doing inspections and stuff like that. So the deck pusher calls and says, hey, we have some lifts that need to be moved, and we have to use 2 cranes to do it. So we get together, we have a little meeting, and I get in one crane, and I go move the lift to the deck to where the other crane operator could move it. As I was parking the crane that I was in, the other crane operator had already went to the other crane and started moving it to pick up the lift. Well, before I even had a chance to get down to go help the guys, they had already picked the basket up. So I fall into place, I get my push-pull tool, I get the tag line, and he's already swung over to position, or close to the position where he's going to be setting this long basket. And as he was slacking off, the basket turned a little bit, and I had to pull my tag line to straighten it up to get it to run along with the handrail.
And when you say slacking off, you don't mean like not doing the work. You mean like slacking the line.
No. Yes, like coming down with a crane lift. And as he was coming down, I pulled my end of the basket around, and I kind of stepped to the side because the basket was a little heavy. It was like a 40-foot basket with some tools in it.
Yeah.
And when I went to put my weight into the load to pull it, to straighten it up, I stepped on a doubler plate. A doubler plate is a pad that is welded to the deck for other equipment to sit on.
Yeah.
Well, these particular pads were the same color as the deck, and I just missed it. In my line of sight, I guess.
It's almost like they were
when
camouflage, right?
That's correct.
Like they're kind
And
of disguised. They're kind of hidden because they're the same color as everything else, so you can't tell when you're out there that they're basically at a different level, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And when I pulled and I planted with my back foot, I was right on the edge of it, and I blew my knee out.
Yeah, and your knee, when you say you blew it out, I mean you legitimately blew it out. This wasn't just some little tweak on your knee or something. Tell us a little bit about how bad the knee ended up being.
Well, when I went down, I took a break. Like I immediately went to sit down because I couldn't. It hurt to stand on it. It started swelling. I called my supervisor, and I told him, I said, "Hey, look, I hurt my knee moving this lift." He's like, "Okay, go see the medic." I didn't say too much to the guys that was on the deck with me, but one guy actually seen it happen. So he called me and said, "Man, are you okay?" And I was like, "Dude, I hurt my knee. I don't know what's wrong with it." So I hobbled down and I got to the stairwell. I went downstairs to go to the main deck of the ship. I managed to get inside and go to the medic. He checked me out. It was a little swelling. Of course, our medics are just medics. They're not doctors.
Right.
So he says, "Okay, look, let's take some Tylenol, some ibuprofen or something, and let's put some ice on it, and you go prop it up." So that's what I did. I did that for 2 or 3 days. It wasn't getting any better. I think in what initially got the medic's attention and for him to tell him to send me in was I actually fell one evening when I was trying to take a shower. I fell in the bathroom.
Yeah.
My knee gave way.
And you're a big, strong guy that had been working offshore for a long time without any of these problems, right? I mean, this is not like you're not some frail person. I mean, this is. Had anything like that ever happened to you before?
No, nothing. I've never not offshore.
Yeah.
I grew up playing sports, playing baseball, football. Hunting all the time. And I torn my ACL in my other knee when I was pheasant hunting in Kansas one time.
Yeah.
So I had an idea that that I'd torn my ACL. But to get back to what I was saying, I fell, my knee gave way, and I fell in the bathroom.
Yeah.
My neighbor heard me fall, so he came into my room to check on me, and I was getting up out of the bathroom floor. And so he went and got the medic. The medic says, "Okay, you're going to go home in the morning or go in to see a doctor." So they flew me in, took me to the doctor. They did an MRI and had a torn ACL, torn meniscus. And the doctor down there had said something about my PCL or there was something else in there.
Yeah.
So instead of sending me home and let me go to an orthopedic surgeon, knowing that my ACL was torn, they put a brace on me and told me to go back to work and do light duty work.
You're kidding me.
So light duty work was supposed to be like paperwork, staying inside doing paperwork and stuff like that. 2 days of that, I was back in the crane.
Really? That quick? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a little bit shocking to me, Robert. But I mean, I've seen that before where somebody gets hurt offshore and they're like, "Well, come back and do light duty." And they're like, "Okay, I'll come back and light duty." And when they say, "Yeah," all of a sudden the company goes, "Well, actually, we don't have any light duty." I've seen that happen before. But why do you think they rushed you back to work so quickly? I mean, 2 days seems really, really fast.
Well, I think the people at work, on the rig, I know somebody said, people, they talk and people don't think it's as serious as it is, or, people think they're faking, because people have done that,
Yeah,
so
for sure.
They're skeptical of when somebody gets hurt.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hobbled up to the crane, and they said, look, just go up to the crane and you stay there until, till you've got to come down or till, whatever. I said, okay. So the first day I went up to the crane, I went to the one of the aft cranes. I got in there, had a boat coming, and I could operate the crane fine.
Yeah.
It was getting up to the crane that was the problem with my bum knee. So I offloaded the boat, which took, 4 or 5 hours. I don't know. Then the next day it was, hey, go get in that crane for me. We got some stuff to move. Okay. And then they start calling, hey, I need you to come get in the other crane.
Yeah.
Well, that's when, I started feeling it. So it was getting worse. My knee was actually swelling. It swelled up so big a couple of times that I couldn't put my knee brace on.
Wow. And this is you're just doing the best you can to try to do the work, and it's just and they're just, it seems like they just want you to do things that you really just frankly shouldn't be doing.
That's right. So anyway, I made it through the hitch and I come home. Okay. They had set me an appointment with an orthopedic surgeon, a local orthopedic surgeon. And I went to the office. He says, he verified, yes, you have a torn ACL, you have a torn meniscus. And he had actually mentioned something about the PCL, but he said there's nothing they do about that. Normally it just heals itself.
Yeah.
So he didn't act like the ACL was that big of a deal, and normally it's not that big of a deal. He says, okay, well, we're going to have to schedule a surgery. We'll get you fixed up and you should be able to return back to work pretty soon. So I called my company and I told him, I said, hey, he said, I can come back to work wearing a knee brace, doing the same thing I did this last time, as long as I was comfortable doing it. And they said, oh, well, you can't come back to work until you get fixed. I was like, what do you mean?
Huh.
And they said, well, just what we said, you have to have surgery before and get cleared before you can come back to work. I said, well, what's the difference in me going back to work last time when you did an MRI?
Yeah,
and
right.
You knew I had a torn ACL.
Yeah.
No one had an answer for me.
Yeah, nobody had any answer. Yeah.
So I was stuck at home. I didn't know if they were going to pay me. If I didn't know anything. I couldn't get anybody to talk to me. Well, the rig, I had paychecks coming from the rig. And I got my first paycheck from them, and everything was good because that was from like the first week, 2 weeks, whatever. I got my last paycheck and it was a full paycheck. So I was like, okay. So they didn't dock me for leaving early.
Yeah.
And then I got a couple, the doctor wanted me to do some stuff like before I had surgery, like some therapy and stuff like that, to see what I could do and what I couldn't do.
Sure.
And I'd got a couple emails from the company, and they were explaining how they were going to pay me and stuff like that. So it kind of eased up. I made a couple phone calls and stuff like that. So, I mean, it all worked out. I had my first surgery, did physical therapy, and it didn't work.
Uh-oh.
It seemed like I was worse off after the first surgery than what I was before I had surgery at all.
Yeah. So what do you do about that?
So I called him, and this doctor had like physical therapy in his office and stuff like that. And he was trying some different things on me. He did like a shock therapy.
Yeah.
He did several different things, and I spoke to the ladies at the office, and I told them, I said, look, I'm not getting any better. I feel like a guinea pig in this guy's office.
Yeah.
I said, can we change doctors to get a second opinion? They said, sure. They said, pick a doctor. And I did. They got me an appointment, and we went from there. This doctor, the first doctor had sent me to get a second MRI. as well, a MRI with contrast. So when I went to the second doctor, I took all my records and stuff, and he looked at it and he says, "Oh, you need surgery." I was like, "Well, I just had surgery, and it was less than a year."
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
He's like, "Well," he said, "your ACL's torn." He said, we have to fix it, you know? So I seen him like in November, and in
Robert,
December,
what was it like? What was it like to hear you just got one pretty major surgery? What was it like to hear less than a year later you got to have another one? What went through your mind when you heard that?
Well, I was surprised.
Yeah.
You know, I was a little disappointed, you know, because I had read some things on a doctor that had done my first surgery, and he was supposed to be a great surgeon, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, did he do something wrong, or did he miss something? You know, is my knee that messed up? You know, I didn't know there was a million things going through my head.
Gotcha. So what happened next?
So I did the second surgery. This doctor says, look, you should be back on your feet in a couple of days. You don't need to do physical therapy. Let's just see how it goes. Well, he done his surgery, and the pain that I was feeling after my first surgery was gone.
Nice.
That pain was gone. Okay. So I immediately felt better. But I was still having pain in my knee. And 6 weeks after, I waited to 6 weeks, no therapy. He says, okay, so how do you feel? I'm like, look, I mean, I don't know, my leg's weak, you know, been doing stuff at home, like he told me, exercises and stuff, and it's not working out too good. He says, okay, well, let's go to therapy. So I did 6 weeks of therapy. Still didn't improve. Well, he says, well, that's about all I can do. You just need to build strength. You know, you have to rebuild your strength in your leg.
Yeah.
So he releases me.
Okay.
When he releases me, my company sends me to the company doctor, and he listens to my heart and all that stuff, and all that was great. But then he starts looking at my knee, and he's like, get off the bed and step up on that stool that I have.
Yeah.
I said, okay. Well, I stepped up with my good leg, with my right leg. And he's like, okay, now do that opposite. And I couldn't push myself up with my left leg.
Yeah.
So he's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I can't do it. So he takes me around. They have some stairs. When they do physicals and stuff, they have a set of stairs. He's like, try to walk up those stairs for me. And I could not do it. I couldn't climb a ladder. I couldn't climb the steps.
Yeah.
He's like, so then his reaction to the doctor that I had picked was, you know, who is this clown that you're going to? So then I'm like, I'm freaking out. You know, I had no clue. I thought I've had 2 surgeries, going to these doctors that has very good reputations in the area, and I'm still hurting. I'm still not able to go back to work.
Yeah.
So that went on for about a year.
Wow.
Therapy after therapy after therapy.
Yeah. So when did you start thinking that you may need to start thinking about protecting your legal rights? Like what was it, if anything, like specific, or it was just kind of over time where you started thinking, man, I might need to get my own lawyer here?
Well, it was after I had my 3rd surgery.
Okay. So you had a 3rd surgery. So you ended up having 3 total surgeries on your leg, trying to get to the bottom of what it was and trying to get it fixed.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I had my 3rd surgery from a completely different doctor. They gave my company gave me a choice when I asked for it let's get a different opinion because things still weren't going right. They said, okay, do you want to go to New Orleans or Baton Rouge? I picked Baton Rouge, so they found me a doctor there.
Okay.
Great doctor. Awesome doctor, you know. He looked at the old MRIs, and he looked at old medical reports, and he says, I don't know why these guys just didn't replace your ACL from the beginning.
Yeah.
So he said all they were doing was patchwork. So we scheduled to have surgery. I have surgery. I go to physical therapy, and that's where the battle started, because now I'm finally fixed.
Yeah.
But over the past 2 years, I had lost muscle
Yeah.
and strength in that leg. And that is still what I'm battling today.
Yeah. And that was many years ago at this point, right?
Right.
So what was it, when the battle started? You said that's when the battle started. What was it? One of the reasons I like to have these calls with people that have gone through the process is so you can kind of explain maybe some of the things that you experienced or that you learned. So for other people that haven't been through it, that don't know what it's like to go through a lawsuit like this, so they can have a little bit of a preview of maybe some of the things that they might want to expect. What was it that kind of finally made you decide, look, I need to get my own lawyer and protect myself?
Well, I started going to physical therapy, and I went to some different therapy places in my area, where I lived at, some local places, and they weren't doing. I'm not going to say they weren't doing the job they needed to do, but it didn't work before.
Yeah.
So the doctor that did my third surgery recommended that I come to do the physical therapy down there, where he can have more control over and be in close contact with the physical therapist and stuff,
Yeah, sure.
to see if we could get something going. So I did that. So I would have to drive 2 hours and stay for 3 days a week in Baton Rouge to do my physical therapy.
Yeah.
So every week I was staying away from home for 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And I was going through this. They were stretching me, and I was trying to do these exercises and stuff. And at that point is when the company started acting funny. Like they would start. Before, they didn't have a problem paying for hotels and meals and my mileage and stuff. And then all of a sudden I stopped getting a check for my mileage, or they would pay for the hotel room only, not pay for meals.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So I got a phone call one day from one of the ladies, and she says, "Have you thought about a settlement?" I was like, "No, I haven't thought about a settlement." I said, "I want my knee fixed. I don't want your money. I want my knee fixed."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, have you thought about what you're going to do?" I said, "No." She's like, "If this don't work out, what are you going to do?" I said, "I have no clue. This is all I've ever done."
Yeah. Yeah.
So from that point there, when they started asking questions like that, I kind of got nervous, and I knew at that point it was over 2 years, and I knew that I had 3 years to do something, because at that 3-year mark, they were gonna cut me off.
And just to be clear, for your case, because it was a maritime case, fell under some special laws that give you 3 years, whereas most people that get hurt, they got either a year, maybe 2 years, but you had an extra year specifically because you were under federal maritime law. I just don't want anybody listening to this that has a different kind of case to think that they might have 3 years too. It might be as short as 1 year. So, but anyway, you've been working. It sounds like this entire time you're working as hard as you can to get your knee fixed so you can go back to work. And now the company is asking you, what are you going to do if you can't go back to work? So you start getting a little suspicious. So what happens next?
Right. Yeah. I mean, they started throwing it to me. It was like red flags,
Yeah.
So I did a little research. I talked to a few people, had some phone calls, and I had seen online where your firm had had cases with my company.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I said, I think I'm going to go with them. I'm going to give them a call and just see what they say.
Yeah.
Because I had been told by someone that I didn't have a case, that it was my fault that I didn't have a case.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if I was to go to court, I might get, just a few $1,000s. It wasn't worth it,
Yeah. They turned out to be very wrong, didn't they? Whoever that person had
That's
told
right.
you, it was way off. Yeah. Yeah.
So I called, and it was just a few minutes, man. I had somebody call me back, and here I am.
Rest is history. Yeah. So tell us. I know Vuk was kind of the lead lawyer on your case, but of course Vuk and I work on basically all of our cases together to some extent. So I was following your case the whole time. Matter of fact, I came to your mediation and was involved in the background quite a bit. But Vuk kind of led your case up. So tell us, Robert, if you would, like during the lawsuit process, did anything happen that like really surprised you, or did anything happen that you either weren't expecting, or maybe something happened that you were expecting? Just kind of tell people, like, based on your experience, what would you tell somebody who is about to go through a similar process as you?
Well, I'll be honest. When I talked on the phone, I was really nervous.
Yeah.
Really, really nervous.
Yeah.
And I spoke to Vuk, and I told him, I said, hey, I'd like to meet you guys in person, because this is a big thing. You know?
Yeah.
So I came there, we had our meeting, and he gave me a sense of security,
Yeah.
He let me know everything was going to be okay.
Yeah.
So it made me feel better about the whole thing.
Good. Excellent. And that's one of the things I found as a lawyer that I tell a lot of my clients, because a lot of the clients are in situations similar to you where, like you're saying, it's a big deal. I mean, this is potentially, maybe you got to get enough money to take care of the future too. It's not just for the injuries that you already sustained. So when people come to us, there's a lot of times it's a very, very big deal in their life. And one of the most important roles I think that Vuk and I play with people in that situation is trying to calm them down a little bit and let them know that they've got an ally on their side that's going to be fighting with them the whole time. So you went through basically the entire process other than trial because your case settled during mediation. Was there anything during the case that really sticks out in your mind as something you would give, like somebody about to go through this, hey, here's what you really need to do, or here's what you really don't need to do, anything like that?
Thinking about it off the top of my head, the only thing I can think of, because I had a million questions, and every time I called, I got a response. It was, can I do this, or can I do that? And I guess maybe depending on people's cases and their injuries, they can work or they can't work.
Right.
Depending on, well, fortunately, I was able to work.
Yeah.
And I tried. My knee injury did hinder me some, but I did what I could do.
Yeah.
The doctor released me to go do a desk job.
Yeah.
But working offshore, I was never trained or had any kind of, I didn't have any former experience doing desk work.
Well, not only that, your desk when you were offshore, you had to climb a ladder to get to your desk, right? Which you couldn't, you're not going to be doing it anymore, right? So, I mean, you got to climb ladders and stairs just to go take a shower,
right.
Get, whatever you're going to do. So keep going.
So, I look to you guys to guide me.
Yeah.
And you know, if I wouldn't have had somebody that was there at a phone call,
yeah,
then I don't know what I would have done.
yeah. You know, and I'm so glad you brought this up, because the insurance companies have spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars trying to make anybody that brings a lawsuit look bad. And sure, there are people that, you know, they try to paint everybody that brings a lawsuit as just sitting at home, eating ice cream, watching Oprah, being lazy, stuff like that. But the reality is, most people want to work. Most people want to do something. So I get that question from my clients, particularly my Maritime clients a lot, is, can I go do something? Can I go try to work in some capacity? Even if you're not making nearly as much money, can I at least try to do something? And what I always tell people is, yes, absolutely. If you're capable of doing something, you should go do something, because not only is that the right thing to do, but also it'll make you happier, make you feel more productive. And when we go to court, the jurors are going to see that you're at least trying to do something. You're not just sitting back waiting to collect a big check. So that's good to hear. The other thing I'm glad to hear is, because we try to do the best possible job that we can. When people have questions, when clients have questions, we try to answer them as quickly as we can. So I'm really glad to hear you say that. So the total settlement was substantially more than the couple $1,000s that person told you your case was worth. So were you overall, were you happy with the settlement?
Yeah, I was. I was more than happy with what I got.
Go ahead. You're what you wanting to say something. Go ahead.
I mean, you know, of course, it can always be more. You know, but I was more than happy.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you know, one of the great things about working on a contingency fee is, I tell my clients, I'm like, hey man, the more you get, the more we get too. So our interests are totally 100% aligned. I want to see you get as much as we can possibly get you. So, well, good. Well, Robert, I know you're a busy guy, and you've been real nice to set aside this time to speak with me today.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, good talking to you, man, and keep in touch, okay, buddy?
All right, man. Thanks.